For the latest on the situation in Gaza, I'm now joined by Nebal Farsakh from the Palestinian Red Crescent, and she is the spokesperson of that organization. Nebal, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon. Now, the conflict shows absolutely no signs of slowing down, and the deterioration, especially with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, is seemingly getting worse by the hour. Just paint a picture for us, especially in the interest of our viewers, in terms of what the situation is currently on the ground a year on.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. The situation in Gaza is beyond dire. There is extreme lack and shortages of essential supplies, including food, water, electricity, and medical care. Almost 96% of people do not have enough food for themselves or their families. 90% of Gaza children suffer from food poverty. Almost 90% of the entire population are internally displaced. They are overcrowded in areas that is called as humanitarian zones. However, even these areas, it turns out it's not safe because we have seen repeated attacks in such areas. The majority of people now don't have even a home to return to, since almost 70% of Gaza homes have been destroyed or damaged. The scale of destruction is unimaginable. There's destruction for civilians' infrastructure, including the water and sanitation networks. The fear, stress, and uncertainty is what the civilians feel in Gaza every single day, having to come through evacuation after evacuation with nowhere safe left for families. And most of the victims are children and women. More than 41,000 people have been killed. More than 96,000 others have been injured. More than 10,000 are still missing under the rubble, and thousands of injured, wounded, and patients are still waiting to be evacuated outside of Gaza to receive the proper treatment, since there is no available treatment for their cases in the Gaza Strip. However, they are still denied access for treatment to be evacuated outside of Gaza. Hospitals are also, the situation in hospitals are catastrophic, where the majority of hospitals were taken out of service. Now, only 16 hospitals out of 36 are still partially functional. That means they are lacking medical equipment, medicines, along even with fuel, which is needed for the power generators. That means there is no way even for quality healthcare in Gaza hospitals, because these hospitals can barely continue operating, trying to save the lives of the patients, while pregnant women, people with chronic diseases, and those who caught infectious diseases, thousands of people, they go out without any proper health care.
Right. So, Nebal, I mean, we know that the prevention of essentials reaching those that are in need was a very big issue, especially at the start of this conflict. Just speak to us with regards to your organization, the Palestinian Red Crescent, and how it is that you are able to get those essentials to those who are in need.
Unfortunately, since the closure of Rafah crossing on May 7th, the Palestine Red Crescent organization, we have not almost received any aid truck, only 60 aid trucks. This is the total number of aid trucks we managed to receive after May 7th, after the closure of Rafah crossing. Before the closure of Rafah crossing, the Palestine Red Crescent received almost 22,000 aid trucks, which include food, relief items, blankets, mattresses, and other relief items. Unfortunately, Israel is still obstructing the entry of humanitarian aid, while aid trucks managed to get through other crossing points. But the number of aid trucks which is allowed to get into Gaza daily is still the minimum. It's not even scratching the surface of needs for the entire population. And here we emphasize the entire population are depending and relying on the humanitarian aid. However, the daily number of aid trucks is still below even the minimum, because before the escalation, Gaza was getting daily 500 trucks. But now, after a year of the war, of the destruction, where we need to get more tents so people can have tents to stay in, we need relief items, we need the clothes because people left everything in their homes. And instead of increasing the number of Eid trucks, we're getting less trucks, like almost 100 trucks or less on a daily basis, which is way far from the needed Eid trucks so we can fulfill the needs of civilians. We renew our calls for the international community to apply more pressure on Israel to allow for a safe, sustained humanitarian aid access to all areas of Gaza so we can deliver this life-saving aid to all the peoples who are in critical need of it.
And I mean, with that said, Nebal, I mean, we are seeing that there's an escalation in this with Israel, not only attacking in terms of the north in Lebanon, they're also looking to go south. How do you think this is then going to affect the region in its entirety with regards to humanitarian aid that will be needed?
I think it has been more than a year with the ongoing war on Gaza, and civilians are paying a high price of it. We see civilians being killed and targeted, humanitarians also being targeted repeatedly. And unfortunately, the international community is not taking serious measures to stop these ongoing violations against the international humanitarian law. And this is for sure led to the continuous of these violations because there is no consequences. And we see now an increase even with the escalation, not only in the Gaza, but also in the region and Lebanon. And this is for sure affecting civilians wherever they are, whether in Gaza or in Lebanon. The international community must take its responsibility and apply more pressure on Israel to stop the suffering of civilians because it needs to be stopped. And we need to see serious actions. We need to see a ceasefire in Gaza because the situation is literally indescribable. I can't even say catastrophic because it is beyond catastrophe. I can't say it is a nightmare because what is happening on a daily basis is even more horrific than a nightmare. Even my colleagues are trying their best for the past year to deliver the life-saving aid. I have lost 34 colleagues during this year. 19 of them were killed while on duty, wearing the Red Crescent emblem, which should have provided them with protection. But unfortunately, they were killed and no consequences.
And that's a very sad situation. Thank you so much for joining us and just giving us that update from Gaza. That's Nebal Farsakh, who is the Palestinian Red Crescent spokesperson, speaking to us there on the back of the initial attack by Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October last year.